Well, when companies are doing badly and there's a lot of layoffs and unemployment, then of course a lot of companies go bankrupt, and then it reaches a point where the government panics. And when the government panics, they try to inject millions and billions and trillions of dollars into the economy. And how do they do it? They borrow money, and then when they can't borrow money, they just print money. And what happens? Huge inflation. And so in effect the government goes bust. And what happens then? Then there is true depression. So in this segment I'd like to sort of summarize what a lot of thinkers have told us in this time period, and the danger that we are facing, and what we should do about it ourselves. So here is the list of why we are in the mess that we are in right now, and what we can do about it individually and collectively. One, deregulation, flattening of the tax rates, and tax breaks for the very rich in the 1980s, and consumerism culture of post-World War II have come back to haunt us. Two, dishonesty in high places, such as Enron and WorldCom and tens of others, results in evaporation of close to $1 trillion of people's investment and dreams. Three, Wall Street continued to be the champion of the huge gambling business of the stock market, playing with people's fortunes and enriching a few smart cookies who know how to play the game at the expense of others. Three, easy credit allowed the banks to give credit to individuals and companies far beyond their capacities, who in turn invested their money in huge commercial real estate or homes that they could not afford and lifestyles that they could not sustain. Four, major bankruptcies such as Circuit City, Linen & Things, Riches, Merrill Lynch, Lehman Brothers ensued. Millions lost their jobs, and many with low equities opted to default and move out of the mansions that they could not afford. Five, government panicked and opted to bail out failing companies, banks, and other financial institutions that deserved to disappear. Six, two wars sapped the economy further by burying close to $1 trillion in the means of destruction with no end in sight. And of course, thousands upon thousands of civilians and soldiers killed and maimed. Seven, government borrowing increased in excess of $10 trillion, and government engaged in a legally sanctioned Ponzi scheme for which Bernard Madoff and some church leaders are serving time, who also contributed their share to the economic downturn by siphoning off billions, perhaps close to $60 billion from people's hard-earned savings. Eight, government contributed further to pseudo-economic recovery through additional tax incentives to increase spending by the masses and buy things that they don't really need. The educational system kept lagging behind most other industrial nations, which in turn contributed to producing second-rate and ill-educated populace. 10, contractors who built inefficient and expensive houses and pocketed some 50% of what it cost them at its height, and realtors who pocketed 7% of the price of the house. Those of them who could sell $4 or $5 million homes in a year really had it made. 11, inefficient cars and huge houses with the square footage of 5,000 to 10,000, in which 2 or 3 people live, contribute further to exorbitant and unnecessary usage of utilities, costing us additional billions of dollars in costs, and the dead weight of those buildings which are not productive in a recurring manner. They're not really true investment for the economy as a whole. 12. University professors, I was one of them, with salaries of $150,000 to $250,000 a year, who teach 3 or 4 courses a year and produce an article or two for important academic journals that hardly anyone reads or uses. 13. A medical profession and dentist industry that siphons off some 15% to 20% of GDP for what costs other industrial nations almost 1/2 of this amount. 14. A self-induced, imposed consumerism from children toys to fancy clothes and things of all kinds that we don't need, but we are conditioned to have and to use. 15. Huge deficits and trade deficits with an insatiable appetite for spending. 16. 1,000 families who control the rest of us and receive multi-million-dollar compensations regardless of how they perform and how their companies perform. In the words of Apostle Paul, money is the source of all evil. So, where are we and what should we do about it? It seems that there needs to be a spiritual solution to economic problems. Extremes of wealth and poverty need to be eliminated. Tax system must be progressive, fair and equitable. Consumption on frivolous stuff must be reduced. Savings must be increased. Credit must be allowed within one's capacity for repayment within a reasonable amount of time. Wage system must be equitable between the lowest paid and the highest paid individuals within a firm. Some research indicate that perhaps a factor of 1 to 20, so that if the CEO earns $20,000, at least the lowest paid should be paid $1,000. But it is much more inequitable, particularly with regard to CEO pay. Government laws must be reduced to a more sustainable level. Unnecessary programs need to be eliminated. Military-industrial complex, in the words of President Eisenhower, must become a lot more efficient with considerably less spending. A lot of these were inspired from the Baha'i writings. So suggestions for what to do now at this stage of our economic recession, which in reality is depression. 1. Invest in gold. 2. Be trained in health industry, green technology, alternative sources of energy. Take advantage of unlimited possibilities with the internet revolution. 3. Improve your entrepreneurial skills, carpentry, sewing, cooking, gardening, whatever you know, to be able to survive in a tough economy. 4. If you have extra funds, invest in companies that treat their customers fairly, are efficient and not frivolous, and provide goods and services at a reasonable price for a vast array of customers and consumers, such as Walmart, Home Depot, GE, Honda, Siemens, etc., on a domestic or global level. 5. Learn to live within your means regardless of the hype of borrow, 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 buy, consume, consume, consume. Thank you for your attention.